Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 273, Little Moments, Big Impact, Reconnecting with Your Authentic Self. Well, hey, and welcome back to this month, which, as you know, is going to be all about self-confidence. And let me ask you something. When was the last time you really checked in with yourself? I don't mean just noticing whether you're tired or hungry. I mean pausing to feel where you are right now, in this moment. Now, maybe you've been rushing through the day, moving from one task to the next, like a lot of us are. Or maybe your mind has been circling the same worries on repeat and you can't get it to stop. It's so easy to get caught up in all of that and forget to stop, even just for a moment, to notice what's going on inside. Well, today we're going to explore something simple but powerful. Those little moments that can change everything. The ones that bring you back to center, that help you feel more like yourself. Whether you've been feeling overwhelmed, disconnected, or just curious about what's possible, then this episode is for you. So let's try to slow down, try to breathe, and take a step towards reconnecting with who we really are. You ready? Let's dive in. So how does all this happen? Like, how do we become so disconnected from ourselves? Well, I call it the quiet disconnect because it happens little by little over time in a very insidious way. And we've touched on this before and we will continue because for those of you especially who grew up in a loving family, it may be harder for you to really hone in on what was going on that made it hard for you to be really authentic, okay? So when you grow up in an unhealthy environment, and that's on a continuum, we're like families where emotional needs aren't acknowledged, or worse, trauma exists and everything else in between. Well, kids have to learn to suppress their feelings to survive, literally, just even emotionally survive. Like maybe no one was going to hit you, but it wasn't going to be pretty. They have to because it's really vulnerable to share your feelings. It's vulnerable to even acknowledge your feelings. And I imagine on some level devastating, right? To put them out there and have them just be rejected, have your brother tease you or mock you, or worse, to have more trauma happen in the room because maybe one of the parents can't handle it. So then they make it about them, they lash out or they withdraw love. And so the takeaway for you is, well, I'm not doing that again. That doesn't go well. That just creates more problems. Acknowledging and expressing my feelings creates more problems, and I don't get what I need. Maybe you got messages like, don't feel that way, or you're too sensitive. It's not a BFD, or we're not talking about this right now. It really taught you to distrust your emotions. You may not realize that, but that's what's happening. And so then you stop saying them aloud. The child accurately intuits then because unless the caregivers and or older siblings overtly made it a point to tell you and show you and model for you that it was safe and important to have your feelings, you weren't going to do it. Because you needed to feel safe and validated. They couldn't assume that as a kid you were going to know via osmosis. Now, intuitively, yeah. But also it was their job to get down on your level, right? When you were little and be very comforting and very kind and very understanding. Also, to make it even more messed up, I think, the kid becomes hyper aware of others' needs and behaviors. And what do? We've talked about this before. They start adapting to avoid conflict or gain approval, both, right? So then they may develop an almost sixth sense for detecting others' moods, learning how to walk on eggshells to keep the peace or earn affection. And this is hypervigilance, as you know, and that can really lead to this strong belief that their value literally lies in how well they anticipate and meet others' expectations. Yikes. Not in who they truly are. It's sad. And it happens whether they want it to happen or not. But over time, then they internalize the idea that their own feelings and needs are either irrelevant or burdensome. And so this just further drives that disconnection from self. It has to. And then what happens, guys, is over time, this pattern becomes so automatic that as an adult, you might feel responsible on some level for everyone else's happiness, while at the same time being unable to identify or voice what you yourself truly wants or needs. Now that's some heavy stuff. You may need to rewind and re-listen to that a couple times, especially if you haven't addressed these things before and if this hits. But that's kind of what happens. And then, of course, they adopt survival skills. So survival becomes all about disconnecting from inner needs and focusing externally. And again, a kid can make this decision consciously or unconsciously. But they do it because it helps them protect the self from more abuse, more neglect, more rejection, etc. And then they develop skills like people-pleasing, perfectionism, procrastination, or task obsession. And they develop that to navigate unpredictable or unhealthy relationships. So as you can see, it's for survival. Now, all of this is compounded by immature relationships because in adulthood, immature or emotionally unavailable people further reinforce this pattern for you. Those people probably surround you now, and because the math is that healthier people would have needed you to be healthier and need you to be healthier. So if those around us lack emotional maturity, they're going to validate surface level interactions. They're going to prioritize doing a task over being vulnerable and being self-aware. So the vicious cycle just keeps going because there's no one around you calling you out on this in a loving way. And this is why you hear me say healthy support is so important. And if you need some healthy support and accountability, check out my course. It has all the pieces that you need, has ways to learn to become more authentic. And most importantly, it has the group support and the one-on-one that you need to do the work to feel encouraged and feel connected and to have accountability. So just click the link on the show notes or reach out to me on social. If you have any questions, I return every message. So over time, we lose contact with our real self and these habits solidify. And what happens is that it creates a false self that is outwardly focused, but disconnected from our inner truth. So after a while, it just becomes hard to even recognize what our own needs, our own desires, or what our authentic feelings are. And what I mean by authentic feelings is, what do I really feel? And what am I afraid to express because it's going to piss someone off or upset someone? So how do you know some of this might be going on for you? Well, at some point, you might start to have a growing sense of like emptiness or dissatisfaction or just feeling kind of blah about your life. Maybe you have a hard time identifying what you truly think or feel or need in the moment. Your focus is outside of yourself, usually frustrated with people, situations, circumstances. You might have a lot of anxiety, irritability, depression, health issues, lots of stress-induced health issues. And you have a tendency to prioritize others or what you need to get done over your own self-reflection and self-care. So how do we work on this? So I think one of the most powerful ways to reconnect with your authentic self is moment by moment by moment. And for those high achievers out there, I know that's going to make you anxious and make you roll your eyes because you're not going to get it done fast enough. But that's the whole point. We want to do the opposite of what you've been doing. So what I mean by in the moment is simply noticing your feelings in the moment without judgment. You're like, look at that. I'm feeling pretty pissed off. So it's really just a practice, and you can do it whenever you can think of it, and try to do it throughout the day. And it's about allowing emotions to surface as they are without labeling them as good or bad. Like, I shouldn't be feeling upset, I should be grateful kind of labeling. Or trying to change or fix them immediately. I saw someone do that yesterday, and they started talking about how upsetting something was, but then like, well, I'm a strong person, I can suck it up and I'll be fine, without giving themselves a moment to just sit in it and be upset. When we pause to acknowledge our feelings, we're sending ourselves a message. Your emotions matter. And guess what? Your experience is valid. This act of what we call self-attunement, I think, helps to rebuild the trust we may have lost with ourselves because of years of neglecting or dismissing our inner world. I know that sounds heavy, but that's what has been going on. So, for example, instead of brushing off anxiety or frustration as something to quote unquote push through, we can take a pause and ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Is there something I might need right now? Do I need rest? Do I need reassurance? Or maybe I need to set a boundary. If we practice this a lot, like as much as we can, over time, I think noticing feelings becomes a bridge back to understanding what we truly think, feel, and need. And we're just observing our emotions without judgment and separate them from our worth or identity. So instead of saying, I'm really angry or I'm angry all the time, we can say, I feel angry. And it makes sense that I feel angry because. This is a subtle but a significant shift because I think it allows us to engage with our emotions as information, right? Rather than something to fear or avoid or suppress. And that's important. And just know this is about practice. And the more you practice, the more you will align with your authentic self. Someone who feels, someone who notices, and acts from a place of self-awareness and self-compassion. And guess what we're not even talking about? How when we do this for ourselves, organically we get better at doing it for others. And that's really, really important, not only for their well-being, but our connection with them. So I want you to take a moment right now just to tap into some truth. And don't worry if not a whole lot comes up for you right away, because I'm putting you on the spot. But just know that doing this exercise is what matters first. The content, matters later. And you'll see what I mean in a moment. So I want to encourage you to take a moment just to reflect on a few things. Your current priorities, your feelings, and your needs, like just this week. You can do that by asking yourself things like, what am I feeling? Like, what's lighting me up? How's my body feeling? Is it feeling tense, relaxed, healthy? And why does that make sense? Just really checking in without judgment, just noticing. Noticing is valuing. Noticing is owning. Noticing is reconnecting. The other thing we can do is work on gratitude in the little things because it can help us feel more authentic. Gratitude is a real big perspective shifter. And it has an incredible ability to shift our perspective even during life's most challenging moments. That's why I like it. It's not a feel-good practice. But guess what? It has a profound effect on how our brain operates, especially if we're stuck in fight or flight or freeze and we can't get out. So what's some of the neuroscience? Well, when we intentionally focus on gratitude, whether we write it down, we reflect on it, or we say it to someone, the area of the brain responsible for rational thinking, decision-making, and emotional regulation, aka the prefrontal cortex, gets activated. And so this helps pull us out of that reactive survival-focused state, which is driven by the amygdala. And so that's what helps is we get out of our limbic system and into the front part of our brain. So gratitude also triggers the release of dopamine and serotonin, which we know are the feel-good chemicals. They improve mood and promote a sense of calm and contentment. So over time, if we practice gratitude often, we can actually strengthen neural pathways, which is really cool. The ones that are associated with positivity and resilience. And so it makes it easier, this is important, to then access this state in the future. So if you find it really hard to practice gratitude now, know that you're doing yourself a favor for the future, even if it's hard today. That way, when you're overwhelmed, instead of easily spiraling into that negative thinking or hyper-focusing on what's wrong, you can do gratitude, because gratitude doesn't invalidate those struggles. It just gently reminds us of what still is good and supportive in our lives. So maybe, for example, instead of feeling consumed by financial stress, gratitude might help us notice that we still have supportive relationships or opportunities to problem solve. So it gives us hope. So how does gratitude get us out of fight or flight? Well, it redirects our focus from fear-based thinking to an appreciation for safety, an appreciation for abundance or connection or whatever, however small. They can be little things. And what happens is this redirection calms our nervous system. It tells our body that it's safe to step out of survival mode. And when our system is calmer, we're more likely to make thoughtful decisions. We know we're more likely to communicate more clearly, and we can see possibilities we couldn't perceive while being stuck in stress. So however you want to practice gratitude is however you want to practice gratitude. Some people do a daily journal where you write down 3 things you're grateful for each day. I do it before I fall asleep because it helps calm down my brain. And then I do it the first thing I wake up. And that helps my perspective before I get out of bed. Some people take what's called a gratitude pause. So when big stress hits, take a moment, name one thing you appreciate in that moment. Even if it's just your supportive friend being there by your side to take on all the crazy that's coming at you. And then express it if you can, like tell someone why you're grateful for them. I think this not only boosts your mood, but it helps strengthen your relationship. It helps them feel good, but it helps you feel more connected and safe, right? So it's mutually beneficial. And again, gratitude isn't about ignoring the hard stuff. That's why I like it. It's just about expanding your awareness to include the good as well. And over time, what's really cool is you're training your brain to find that balance even when life hits hard. Okay. The other thing you can do is find your reset whenever and however you want to do that. I like to do this at least once a week, usually on Sunday, where you find a way to regroup, whether you take a walk, you deep breathe, you journal. Maybe you find time throughout the day to do this. And so you may not think that these little moments matter, but I can tell you that they do. Because when I have clients start to really work on this, I notice over time they're more in tune with who they are. And it's really great. So I invite you to, if you're not already doing it, start a practice that you can do once or twice a day, maybe more throughout the week, whatever you want to do. My encouragement is do what feels organic for you and just start there. Because what's really cool about this is you can take this wherever you want to take it, but every little bit adds up. If you really have a hard time taking a moment and stopping, and if you have trauma in your background that you have not addressed yet, I strongly urge get some trauma therapy first and get a support group around you second. If you've already done a lot of that work, but your brain is still just wanting, right, you to stay disconnected from yourself, check out the course, check out a power hour with me. You and I can sit there and figure out what you need, what is next, and what would work best. If you're not ready for all that, I have a free Boundaries ebook. You can check out the link in the show notes for that. We have a Facebook group where I do Facebook Lives every Wednesday night. Those are great because then you can connect with other people just like yourself. I have a course that's coming out soon all about not settling for less than what you deserve. Okay, so if you need more in-depth work facing on things, check out the courses, check out Work With Me, find the group support in the Facebook group so that you can keep growing. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you were able to take a few moments and connect or reconnect with who you really are. Know that the more you do it, easier it gets, the better it gets. All right. So, pay it forward. Keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.